The clink of wine glasses faded as my husband's voice cut through the chatter at my mother's birthday party. "Annemarie, get up and serve the guests," he said, his tone sharp, commanding, as if I were a hired hand, not his wife. The room froze, eyes turning to me, and I felt my face burn, my hands trembling under the table. At 42, I'd spent years swallowing moments like this, but tonight, something inside me cracked. This wasn't just a command, it was the spark that would change everything. The late summer light filtered through the oak trees, casting dappled shadows across my mother's backyard in suburban Portland. At 42, Annemarie, stood at the edge of the celebration, a glass of iced tea in hand, watching the party unfold for my mother's 70th birthday. The air was warm, scented with grilled corn and jasmine, and the long table was a mosaic of potluck dishes, lasagna, fruit salad, my homemade lemon cake. It was a day meant for joy, for family, and I'd poured my heart into making it perfect. But beneath my smile, a quiet unease stirred, a feeling I couldn't name. The backyard was alive with laughter and chatter, the kind of gathering my mother, Evelyn, thrived on. She sat at the head of the table, her silver hair glowing, her laugh bright as she recounted stories to her old bridge club friends. My husband, Paul, 45, moved through the crowd with ease, his button-down shirt crisp, his charm dialed up as he refilled drinks and cracked jokes. Our daughter, Lily, 16, flitted between cousins, her phone forgotten for once, her giggles a balm to my nerves. My younger sister, Claire, was there too, her bohemian dress swirling as she arranged flowers, her warmth a contrast to my own guarded calm. I'd spent weeks planning this, coordinating with Claire, borrowing tables, baking that cake until the lemon zest was just right. It was my gift to Mom, a woman who'd raised us through lean years with grit and love. I wanted her to feel celebrated, surrounded by the community she'd built. As I adjusted a platter of sandwiches, guests nodded their thanks, their smiles kind but fleeting. I felt a flicker of pride, a hope that today would be smooth, that Paul and I could be the team we'd once been, before the years had worn us into something sharper. Paul caught my eye from across the lawn, his grin wide but his gaze brief, distracted. We'd been married 18 years, and I'd grown used to his edges, his need for control, his quick temper, but I still believed in us, in the love that had carried us through Lily's birth, job losses, my father's passing. Today, I told myself he'd see my effort, maybe even thank me. I smoothed my sundress, a soft blue that Lily said brought out my eyes, and joined the table, sitting beside Mom, her hand squeezing mine. "You outdid yourself, Annie," she whispered, her voice warm. "This is perfect." I smiled, my heart lifting. "Anything for you, Mom." But as I glanced at Paul, now laughing with his golf buddy, Mark, a shadow crossed my hope. He'd been distant lately, his comments about my housewife duties stinging more than usual. I pushed the thought away, focusing on the clatter of plates, the hum of conversation. The party was going well. Neighbors, family, friends all mingling, the sun dipping low. I let myself believe it could stay this way, that the unease in my chest was just nerves. Claire leaned over, her earrings jingling. "You okay, sis? You look tense." I forced a laugh, tucking a strand of my auburn hair behind my ear. "Just want it to be perfect for Mom." She squinted, unconvinced, but let it go, turning to chat with a cousin. I sipped my tea, the ice melting, and scanned the crowd, counting heads to ensure everyone was fed. Lily caught my eye, waving from the dessert table, and I waved back, her joy a reminder of why I kept things steady, why I swallowed Paul's barbs. For her, for Mom, for the family we'd built. But as the afternoon wore on, a tightness grew in my throat, a premonition I couldn't shake. The celebration was just beginning, and something told me it would mark more than my mother's birthday. The backyard of my mother's Portland home buzzed with a clatter of plates and laughter, but for me, Annemarie, the air was thick with shame. At 42, I'd poured my heart into crafting a perfect 70th birthday celebration for my mother, Evelyn, only to have my husband, Paul, shatter it with a single command: "Annemarie, get up and serve the guests." His words, sharp and public, hung over the table like a storm cloud, the guests' eyes pinning me in place. My hands trembled under the linen, my face burning, as the moment stretched, etching itself into my soul. I was no longer just the hostess. I was a woman exposed, and the weight of it was crushing. The silence that followed Paul's command was deafening, a collective holding of breath. My mother's smile faltered, her hand tightening on mine. Lily, my 16-year-old daughter, froze mid-laugh, her eyes darting to me, wide with confusion. Claire, my sister, set down her glass, her jaw tight, while Paul's golf buddy, Mark, chuckled nervously, as if it were a joke. The other guests, neighbors, Mom's bridge friends, cousins, shifted uncomfortably, some looking away, others staring, their curiosity ablaze. Paul leaned back in his chair, his expression unyielding, as if he'd done nothing wrong. I stood, my legs shaky, the sundress I'd chosen for its cheer now feeling like a costume. "Of course," I said, my voice barely audible, forcing a smile that felt like a lie. I moved to the buffet table, my hands fumbling with a platter of sandwiches, the guests' murmurs resuming like static. "Such a lovely spread," Mom's friend Dora said, her tone overly bright, trying to smooth the tension. I nodded, my throat tight, and served, each step mechanical, my mind a whirl of humiliation and disbelief. Inside, I was unraveling. Paul's command wasn't just a moment. It was a mirror, reflecting years of small cuts I'd ignored. I felt stripped, reduced to a servant in my own life, my efforts for Mom's party, weeks of planning, baking, decorating, erased by his dismissal. Why had he done it? To control me? To remind everyone who was in charge? The questions churned, but shame drowned them, whispering I'd earned this, that I wasn't enough. As I refilled a pitcher of lemonade, a memory surfaced, sharp and unbidden. 5 years ago, at Lily's 11th birthday, Paul had done something similar. We'd hosted a backyard barbecue, kids running through sprinklers, parents chatting over burgers. I was slicing watermelon when Paul called out, "Annemarie, stop chatting and get more drinks out here." His tone was lighter then, but the sting was the same. The guests' awkward glances, a familiar weight. I'd laughed it off, fetching sodas, but later, alone in the kitchen, I'd cried, my hands gripping the counter. "It's just Paul," I'd told myself, blaming his stress, our tight budget. But the memory burned now, a pattern I couldn't unsee. Another flashback followed, from 2 years ago, at a neighborhood potluck. I'd brought my lemon cake, the same one I'd made for Mom, and Paul had interrupted my story about the recipe to say, "Let's not bore everyone, Annemarie. Grab some plates." The laughter that followed was polite, but it cut. My voice silenced, my role redefined. I'd obeyed, smiling, always smiling because that's what I did, kept the peace, kept us together. But each incident had chipped away at me, leaving cracks I'd plastered over with excuses. Back in the present, I set down the pitcher, my hands trembling. The guests were eating again, the party resuming, but the air felt different, charged with unspoken questions. Claire caught my eye, her expression a mix of anger and worry, but I shook my head, not ready to talk. Lily approached, her voice low. "Mom, are you okay?" Dad was weird. Her concern pierced me, a reminder that she saw that this wasn't just about me. "I'm fine, sweetie," I lied, brushing her hair back. "Go have fun." She hesitated, then returned to her cousins, leaving me alone with my thoughts. My self-worth, once a quiet strength, was crumbling. Was this who I was now, a woman who served on command, whose voice didn't matter? I'd been a teacher's aide before Lily was born, a job I loved, but I'd given it up to raise her, to support Paul's career as a financial advisor. I'd told myself it was a choice, a partnership, but Paul's words today made it feel like a sentence. Our marriage, once a haven of shared dreams, had become a stage for his control, and I'd played along, afraid of what breaking the script would mean. I glanced at Paul, now joking with Mark, his ease a stark contrast to my turmoil. Did he know how he'd hurt me? Did he care? The question stung, but a deeper one cut through. Why had I let this become my normal? I thought of Mom, who'd raised Claire and me alone after Dad left, her strength a lighthouse in my childhood. She'd never bowed to anyone, yet here I was, bending under Paul's thumb, my dignity a casualty of my silence. Hope flickered, a fragile wish that I could reclaim myself, but disappointment was stronger. What could I do? Confront Paul in front of everyone? Leave him? Upend Lily's life? The risks loomed, and I wasn't ready. Not yet. I moved to the dessert table, slicing my lemon cake, the knife steady despite my shaking heart. Guests thanked me, their voices softer now, tinged with pity or guilt. Doris squeezed my arm, whispering, "You're doing great, dear." But her kindness only deepened my shame. As I served a slice to a cousin, I caught Paul's eye. He nodded, as if approving my compliance, and my stomach twisted. This wasn't love, it was ownership, and I'd let it define me for too long. The realization was a seed, small but sharp, planted in the wreckage of my pride. I didn't know how, but I knew I couldn't stay this Annemarie, the one who smiled through pain. The party continued, laughter rising, but I was somewhere else, teetering on the edge of change, the weight of what came next pressing against my chest. The Portland dusk settled over my mother's backyard, the birthday party's glow fading as fairy lights flickered against the gathering dark. At 42, Annemarie, stood at the edge of the celebration, my heart raw from Paul's public command to serve the guests. The humiliation had cracked something inside me, exposing a truth I'd buried for years. My marriage, my role, my very self-worth were eroding under his control. The laughter of Mom's guests felt distant, their faces blurred by my churning thoughts. I was no longer just the dutiful wife and mother. I was a woman waking up, and the weight of that awakening was both terrifying and exhilarating. The party was winding down, dishes cleared, guests sipping coffee as Mom opened gifts. I busied myself stacking plates, avoiding Paul's gaze, his easy chatter with neighbors a stark contrast to the storm in my chest. Lily was with her cousins, her laughter a bittersweet reminder of why I'd stayed silent so long. But the shame of Paul's words clung to me, each memory of serving under his command replaying like a loop, sandwiches, lemonade, my lemon cake, all offered with a smile that hid my pain. I felt like a ghost in my own life, visible only as a function, not a person. Claire, my younger sister, found me in the kitchen, her bohemian dress swaying as she carried a tray of cups. "Annie, you're doing too much," she said, her voice gentle but firm. "Sit down. Let me handle this." I shook my head, scrubbing a plate, my hands trembling. "I'm fine, Claire. Just keeping busy." She set the tray down, her eyes narrowing. "You're not fine. I saw what Paul did, telling you to serve like that. It was wrong." Her words, blunt but kind, pierced the wall I'd built. I froze, the sponge dripping, my throat tightening. Claire had always been my mirror, seeing truths I hid, but I wasn't ready to face this one. "It's just Paul," I said, my voice low, echoing excuses I'd made for years. "He didn't mean it like that." Claire crossed her arms, her earrings glinting. "Didn't he? Annie, you're not his maid. You planned this whole party, and he treated you like nothing." Her voice softened, but her words cut deep. "You deserve better. You always have." I turned away, rinsing the plate, tears burning my eyes. Claire's honesty was a lifeline, but it also forced me to look at the cracks in my marriage, the ones I'd plastered over with hope. I don't know what to do, I admitted, my voice barely a whisper. Lily needs us together. Mom needs us stable. I can't just append everything. Claire stepped closer, her hand on my shoulder. You don't have to decide now, but you need to think about what you want, not just what they need. You're more than this, Annie. Her words were a spark, igniting a question I'd buried. What did I want? I'd been wife, mother, daughter for so long, I'd forgotten the woman underneath. As we cleaned, memories surfaced, unbidden and sharp, painting a picture of Paul's control I'd ignored. 5 years ago, at a parent-teacher night, he'd snapped at me in front of Lily's classmates' parents. Annemarie stopped talking and grabbed my coat. I'd laughed it off, fetching it, but the sting of their pitying looks lingered. Another time, at a company dinner for his firm, he'd interrupted my story about a book I loved, saying, "No one cares about that, hon. Get us some wine." Each incident had felt small, a pebble in my shoe, but together, they were a mountain, crushing my voice. These red flags, once dismissed as just Paul, now glared in hindsight. His need to direct me, to define my role, wasn't love, it was dominance, subtle but relentless. I'd excused it, blaming his stress, our finances, my own flaws. But Claire's words echoed, "You deserve better." I thought of Mom, who'd rebuilt her life after Dad left, working double shifts to keep us fed. She'd never let anyone diminish her. Why had I? Back outside, I sat beside Mom, her silver hair catching the light as she hugged a guest goodbye. She turned to me, her eyes searching. "You're quiet, Annie. What's going on?" I hesitated, Claire's courage nudging me. "Paul embarrassed me today," I said, my voice low. "Told me to serve everyone like I was just the help." Mom's face tightened, her hand finding mine. "That's not right, sweetheart. You're his partner, not his servant." Her voice was steady, but I saw the worry in her eyes, the same worry she'd had when I married Paul, when his charm had overshadowed his edges. "You've always been strong, Annie. Don't let him make you forget that." Her words were a balm, but also a challenge. I wanted to be that strong Annemarie, the one who'd taught kids to read, who danced with Lily in the kitchen, who dreamed of writing stories someday. But doubt crashed in. Could I change without breaking everything? Lily's laughter, Paul's rare soft moments, Mom's need for family harmony. They tethered me to this life, even as it suffocated me. The emotional waves surged. Hope flickered when Claire and Mom saw me, their belief a mirror to a self I'd lost. But disappointment followed, heavy and cold. I wasn't ready to confront Paul, not with Lily watching, not with the party still lingering. I imagined telling him how I felt, his eyes narrowing, his voice dismissing me. "You're overreacting." The fear of his reaction, of losing the stability I'd built, paralyzed me. Yet the idea of change grew, a seed taking root. I didn't know what it looked like, leaving, demanding respect, finding my voice, but it was there, pulsing, refusing to be ignored. As guests left, Paul approached, his smile easy, oblivious. "Great job today, Annemarie. Everyone loved the cake." His praise, once a lifeline, now felt hollow, a pat on the head for a role I hadn't chosen. I nodded, my voice gone, and turned to hug Mom, her warmth grounding me. Lily ran over, her arms around me, and I held her tight, her love a reminder of what I was fighting for. In the kitchen, alone, I stared at my reflection in a window, the Portland night dark beyond. My auburn hair was loose, my blue eyes tired but alive with something new, resolve, fragile but growing. I wasn't ready to act. Not yet, but I was waking up, seeing the woman I could be. Claire's challenge, Mom's strength, my own buried dreams. They were threads, weaving a path I couldn't yet see. The party was over, but my story was just beginning, and I knew, deep down, I'd never be the same. The Portland autumn crept in, leaves turning gold outside my mother's house, where the sting of Paul's command at her birthday party still lingered. At 42, Annemarie, was no longer the woman who'd served guests on demand, smiling through humiliation. That moment, his sharp get up and serve, had fractured something, waking a part of me I'd buried under years of duty. Conversations with my sister Claire and my mother Evelyn had planted a seed. I deserved more. Now, I was taking quiet, bold steps to reclaim myself, each one a rebellion against the silence I'd worn like a second skin. But change was a tightrope, and every step brought resistance, guilt, and a growing fire I couldn't ignore. The morning after the party, I sat at our kitchen table, the house quiet, Lily at school, Paul at work. My notebook, a relic from my days as a teacher's aide, lay open, its pages blank but inviting. Claire's words, "What do you want?" echoed, urging me to answer. I wrote one word, voice. It felt small, but it was a start, a declaration that I wouldn't be invisible anymore. I closed the notebook, my heart racing, and made my first move. I signed up for a writing workshop at the local library, something I'd loved before marriage but abandoned for Paul's priorities. The act was quiet, a secret kept from him, but it felt like defiance. That evening, I set my first boundary. Paul came home, tossing his keys on the counter, expecting dinner as usual. I'd cooked, but I sat at the table, not serving. "Dinner's ready," I said, my voice steady. "You can grab your plate." He paused, his brow furrowing. "What's this? You're not eating with us?" "I am," I said, meeting his eyes. "But I'm not your waitress, Paul. We're a team." My hands trembled under the table, but I held his gaze, the memory of the party fueling me. He scoffed, grabbing a plate, his voice sharp. "Don't make a big deal out of nothing, Annemarie. I'm tired." Lily at the table glanced between us, her fork still. I forced a smile for her, but inside, I was shaking, part fear, part triumph. It was a small stand, but it was mine, a crack in the role I'd played for years. The resistance grew. Paul's irritation was subtle but constant. Sighs when I left dishes for him, comments like, "You're acting different," laced with accusation. At a family dinner, he interrupted me mid-story about the workshop, saying, "Let's not bore everyone with that." The old Annemarie would have shrunk, but I pressed on, finishing my thought, my voice firm. Claire nodded, her smile a quiet cheer, but Paul's eyes narrowed, his silence a warning. Guilt gnawed at me. Lily needed stability, and I was rocking the boat, but Claire's words echoed, "You're more than this." I sought refuge in my passions, carving out time away from home. The writing workshop was a revelation, a room of strangers sharing stories, their encouragement a mirror to a self I'd forgotten. I wrote about Mom's strength, Lily's laughter, my own buried dreams, each word a step toward reclaiming my voice. One evening, I stayed late, discussing a poem with a classmate, Sarah, whose quiet confidence inspired me. "You're good at this," she said, her eyes kind. "Don't stop." I drove home, tears blurring the Portland lights, hope surging. I was Annemarie, not just wife or mother, but a woman with stories to tell. Flashbacks deepened my realizations. I remembered my 20s before Paul, when I'd planned to study literature, to write novels. I'd read poetry to Lily as a baby, dreaming of publishing someday. Paul had called those dreams cute but impractical, urging me to focus on family. I'd agreed, thinking it was love, but now I saw it as control, his vision of me, a dutiful wife, erasing my own. The red flags I'd ignored, his interruptions, his dismissals, were a pattern, not accidents. I'd let him define me, but I was waking up, seeing the cost. The emotional tension peaked one night when I opened up to Claire over coffee at her apartment, its walls lined with her paintings. Lily was at a sleepover, Paul at a late meeting. I poured out everything, his command, the party, the years of small humiliations. I don't know who I am anymore, I admitted, my voice breaking. I love Lily, Mom, even Paul, but I'm disappearing. Claire hugged me, her voice fierce. You're still there, Annie. You're just buried under his crap.
What do you want?
Really? I paused, the question a spotlight. I want to be me again, I said, tears falling. To write, to feel strong, to not be afraid of him. The words were a revelation, a map to a life I could claim. Claire squeezed my hand, her belief a lifeline. Then start small, she said. But don't stop. Paul's resistance flared when I told him I'd joined the workshop, planning to attend weekly. You're neglecting us, he snapped, his face hard. Lily needs you here, not chasing hobbies. His words stung, guilt flooding me. Lily did need me, and I'd always put her first. But I saw the manipulation now, his attempt to keep me small. It's one night a week, I said, my voice calm but firm. I'm doing this for me. He stormed out, the door slamming, and I sat, heart pounding, torn between guilt and resolve. Lily noticed the change, her eyes searching mine one morning. You seem happier, Mom, but also sad. Is it Dad? Her insight pierced me, a reminder she saw more than I realized. I hugged her, choosing honesty. I'm figuring some things out, sweetie. But I love you always. She nodded, her trust a spark, urging me forward. The decisive moment came at the workshop, when Sarah shared a poem about breaking free, her words echoing my struggle. Driving home, the Portland skyline aglow, I realized what I needed, to confront Paul, not with anger, but with clarity, to demand respect or walk away. The thought terrified me. Lily's life, Mom's hopes, our shared history hung in the balance, but I couldn't stay silent anymore. I wasn't just fighting for me. I was showing Lily what strength looked like, what a woman could be. At home, I opened my notebook, writing a list, talk to Paul. Set rules. Keep writing. Be Annemarie. It was a plan, quiet but bold, a bridge to a new self. Guilt lingered. Could I hurt Lily, disrupt Mom's peace? But confidence grew, a fire kindled by Claire's belief, Sarah's encouragement, my own rediscovered voice. My identity was shifting, from silence to assertion, from Paul's shadow to my own light. I wasn't ready to leap, but I was preparing, each step a promise to the woman I was becoming. The night was still, but my heart roared, ready for the fight ahead. The Portland winter whispered through bare trees, a quiet promise of change as I, Annemarie, stood at the threshold of a new self. At 42, the humiliation of Paul's command at my mother's birthday party, "Get up and serve," had ignited a transformation. His words, once a shackle, had become a catalyst, waking me from years of silence. Conversations with my sister Claire and mother Evelyn, rediscovered passions and small acts of defiance, setting boundaries, reclaiming my writing, had rebuilt my voice. Now I was ready to act, to redefine my life on my terms, not his. The path wasn't clear, the outcome uncertain, but I carried a quiet power, a dignity forged in the fire of my awakening. The decision crystallized after a writing workshop, where I'd shared a poem about breaking free, my words raw but true. The applause from Sarah and my classmates, strangers who saw me, fueled my resolve. I couldn't stay in a marriage where I was diminished, but I wouldn't destroy Lily's world or Mom's peace. My plan was deliberate, not a dramatic exit, but a transformation of our dynamic, a demand for respect that would either heal us or set me free. I'd confront Paul, lay bare my pain, and set non-negotiable boundaries. If he couldn't meet me as an equal, I'd leave, not today, but soon, with a plan to protect Lily and myself. The conversation happened on a Saturday, Lily at a friend's house, the kitchen quiet except for the hum of the fridge. Paul sat at the table, scrolling his phone, oblivious to the storm I'd been weathering. I set my notebook down, my list, talk to Paul. Set rules. Keep writing. Be Annemarie. etched in my mind. "Paul, we need to talk," I said, my voice steady, though my heart raced. He looked up, his brow furrowing. "What's this about? You've been weird for weeks." I took a breath, the party's shame flashing before me. "At Mom's party, you told me to serve the guests, like I was your maid. It wasn't just that moment. It's years of you dismissing me, controlling me. I'm your wife, not your servant. I deserve respect, and I'm done pretending otherwise." His face hardened, his voice sharp. "You're blowing this out of proportion." I was joking. "You're too sensitive, Annemarie." "No," I said, my voice rising firm. "It's not a joke when it hurts me, when it's a pattern. I've let you define me for too long, interrupting me, belittling my dreams. I'm changing that. I'm writing again, building a life for me. You can be part of it, but only if you treat me as an equal." Paul leaned back, stunned, his silence heavy. "What are you saying? You're threatening to leave." His tone was defensive, but I saw a flicker of fear in his eyes, a crack in his armor. "I'm saying I'm done shrinking," I replied, my voice calm but unyielding. "We go to counseling, work on this together, or I start planning a life without you. For Lily's sake, I hope you choose us." I held his gaze, my hands steady, the guilt I'd feared drowned by conviction. This was my line in the sand, drawn with love but no compromise. He didn't answer, his jaw tight, and stood, leaving the room. The door clicked shut, and I exhaled, tears falling but my heart light. It wasn't a victory, not yet, but it was a step, a declaration of my worth. I'd spoken my truth, and that alone was power. The outcome was messy, not a fairy tale, but a meaningful shift. Paul agreed to counseling, grudgingly, his pride bruised but his love for Lily and maybe me, pushing him. Our first session was tense, his defensiveness clashing with my clarity, but the therapist's questions forced him to listen. He admitted, haltingly, that his father's controlling ways had shaped him, a revelation that softened my anger, though trust would take time. At home, I kept my boundaries, no more serving on command, no more interruptions. Paul tested them, his sighs loud, but I held firm, my confidence growing with each stand. Lily noticed, her eyes sharp as we baked cookies one evening. "You're different, Mom," she said, flower on her cheek. "Like, stronger." I hugged her, tears pricking, and told her the truth. "I'm learning to be me, sweetie. You should always be you, too." Her smile was a gift, a sign I was modeling the strength I wanted for her. I opened up to Mom, sharing my fears and hopes over tea. "I'm proud of you, Annie," she said, her voice thick. "You're my daughter, but you're your own woman." Her words were a cornerstone, rebuilding my identity. I leaned into my passions, attending the workshop weekly, my poems gaining depth. Sarah became a friend, her encouragement a mirror to my growth. I started a blog, sharing my writing, each post a rebellion against Paul's dismissal of my dreams. Comments from strangers, "Your words moved me," were sparks, lighting a path to a future where I could teach again, maybe publish. I wasn't there yet, but I was moving, each step a reclaiming of Annemarie. Resistance lingered. Paul's old habit surfaced, snapping when I left dishes, questioning my workshop nights, but I didn't bend. Guilt flared when Lily overheard us argue, her face pale, but I reassured her. "We're working on it for us." Claire checked in, her pride a lifeline. "You're a badass, Annie." Some days, doubt crept in. Could I save my marriage without losing myself? But hope was stronger, fueled by my growing sense of self. I wasn't just a wife or mother. I was a writer, a dreamer, a woman with a voice. The pivotal moment came at a family dinner, weeks later, when Paul interrupted me again, dismissing my blog as a hobby. I didn't shrink. "It's not a hobby," I said, my voice clear, guests watching. "It's my work and it matters." The table stilled, Claire's nod urging me on. Paul flushed, silent, and I felt a shift, a power I'd claimed. Later, he apologized, a rare softness in his eyes, a sign counseling was sinking in. It wasn't perfect, but it was progress, a step toward a partnership I could live with, or a life I could build alone if needed. I stood in our backyard, the Portland sky a canvas of stars, my notebook in hand. The party's shame felt distant, a memory eclipsed by my growth. I'd confronted Paul, set boundaries, rediscovered my voice, and the woman I saw in the mirror, auburn hair loose, blue eyes alive, was no longer silent. My marriage was a work in progress, Lily's love a constant, Mom's pride a foundation. I'd started saving for a teaching course, a plan to return to work, to write a book someday. The future wasn't clear, but it was mine, shaped by my choices. I opened my notebook, writing a new word. Enough. I was enough for Lily, for Mom, for myself. The quiet power I'd found wasn't loud or vengeful. It was steady, rooted in dignity, a flame no one could dim. I closed the notebook, the stars above bearing witness, and stepped back inside, ready for whatever came next. Annemarie was no longer a shadow. She was a force, and she was here to stay.